G'day, Internet. Kale from Veza here with another Identity Security Spotlight. And we're here to talk about the latest in a string of ransomware attacks targeting the healthcare industry to try and provide some insight on what happened, why it's significant, and what we should expect going forward. So, what happened? Last week, reports surfaced of an attack against Ascension Healthcare, which is a nonprofit overseeing about 140 different hospitals across 19 states. We learned that this was a ransomware attack using a strain of ransomware from a group known as Black Pasta, who operate ransomware as a service. And Health Isaac recently issued a threat advisory around this group specifically as a threat to healthcare providers. And we saw a very significant impact from this attack, right? Some ambulances actually had to be diverted from several hospitals, and the affected hospitals had trouble accessing health records, phone systems they need to use to order tests, procedures, medication. So a lot of real world disruption. So there's no one I'd rather have with me to discuss this today than Mike Towers, who is not only Veza's Chief Security and Trust Officer, but also has a long history as a CISO in the healthcare industry. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm good, Kale. How are you?
Good. Mike, there's clearly a lot to unpack here between the Change Healthcare attack, HCA last year, and now this. Is there a reason that attackers are so aggressively targeting healthcare organizations?
Yeah, Kale, it's a great question. Obviously, one close and near and dear to my heart, given all my years in healthcare and life sciences and working with the Health ISAC. There's several reasons why attackers are increasingly targeting healthcare organizations and ransomware, unfortunately. Because attacking healthcare providers allow cyber criminals to cause widespread chaos and disruption, which is often their primary goal. And when hospitals and medical facilities are compromised, it can have a devastating impact on patient care and patient trust. Healthcare organizations are more likely to pay ransomware demands due to the critical nature of the services. Disruption of their operations could literally put lives at risk, making them more susceptible to complying with attackers' commands to restore access to vital systems and data quickly. I always imagine a scenario where you've got a bunch of patients in ICU. You can't really spend time negotiating. You have to pay to restore as quickly as possible. And as we've seen in recent incidents, the attackers are targeting organizations that are in the supply chain. They oversee multiple healthcare facilities, so they're not just impacting individual hospitals. Because by compromising a larger network, they can maximize their impact and, frankly, get larger payouts. And while breaches and incidents are unfortunately inevitable, we have to focus on strengthening our prevention measures and developing a robust response and recovery plan to minimize the impact when attacks do occur. Attackers are relentless and will continue to set their sights on healthcare organizations due to the sensitive nature of the data they handle and the critical services they provide.
Agreed. It's a tough truth, and one that's only going to amplify the conversations we're already having around the Change Healthcare situation. So, we see that in healthcare specifically, it's absolutely mission critical to be able to respond quickly to security incidents. As you mentioned, they're engaging in such necessary work that they really need to be able to depend on stability and resilience and trust from their partners and help keep their operations running.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When healthcare providers are interrupted, it's not like when corporate data or trade secrets are stolen from an enterprise. In this case, ambulances had to be diverted, and a basic human need that, frankly, we should be able to take for granted was interrupted. The updates from Ascension have been swift and encouraging, which is a really, really good sign. The reports of the attack surfaced just last week, and over the weekend, they are already beginning to restore systems, which is great. And while details are still limited, that demonstrates a level of preparedness and action that any organization should strive for. So hats off to them for that.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, right, attackers are relentless. Breaches are going to happen. So what we really need to do is use these incidents to learn about how can we strengthen our defenses against them, and also how can we minimize the potential impact when these incidents do happen. So to that end, as a longtime CISO in the healthcare sector, what should organizations be doing to prepare themselves for an attack like this one?
Yeah, Cal, great question. I mean, three things come to mind first and foremost. Number one is you have to ensure reliable data backup and recovery. Maintain secure offline backups of critical data. Regularly test your recovery processes to ensure business continuity, so you can minimize the impact of a successful ransomware attack. Many organizations, frankly, they focus way too much on backup strategies and they don't spend enough time or energy on restores and recovery. And we have to make sure we test those recoveries at the application level. Secondly, we have to develop and practice an incident response plan. We have to create, regularly test, and update incident response plans that outlines roles, responsibilities, procedures, detection, containment, recovery. All of those steps are really important. And ensure that all relevant personnel are trained and prepared to execute the plan effectively. Just like any sport or playing any instrument, practice is what we need to improve our capabilities, and it's no different in the security world. And thirdly is I think we have to make sure we educate employees, provide ongoing cybersecurity awareness training, help employees identify and report phishing attempts, suspicious emails,
Mhm.
and other potential ransomware vectors.
Absolutely. So, Mike, what about the role of access here? Right, we don't yet have a lot of details about exactly how the Ascension attack happened, but we do know that the attack on Change Healthcare was made possible by gaps in multi-factor authentication. And the Health Isaac advice released last week notes that while the Blackbuster attack uses a lot of sophisticated tools, the initial entry point is usually a phishing attack, right?
Yeah, these attacks almost always begin with compromised identity. And from there,
Mm.
attackers use a variety of mechanisms and ways to get more privileged escalation, do lateral movement. So it's critical to implement strong access controls. Enforcing the principle of least privilege is really important to ensure that users only have access to the resources they need, making sure that all human identities are covered by MFA, and frankly, that machine identities are managed properly and their credentials are rotated too. Rigorous access control is a critical component of the strategies that can help contain the breadth of impact when incidents do occur. It limits lateral movement and limits the data and systems that are exposed or in scope of any malware.
Absolutely. So attackers look for the path of least resistance. So you just can't give them the easy entry point that is an overprivileged and underprotected identity. Good stuff, Mike. Any closing thoughts here?
Yeah, Cal. I mean, today's threat landscape is constantly evolving. It's rapidly changing, and healthcare organizations must prioritize the availability and resilience of their systems alongside the confidentiality of sensitive data. Most security teams and security leaders have been prioritizing confidentiality for a long time, and rightfully so. But now when we start thinking about protecting patient information, the Ascension ransomware attack underscores the critical importance of assuring uninterrupted access to these services and resources, which for many people will be life-saving. And as security leaders, we must recognize this shift in priorities, adapt our strategies accordingly. It's essential that we foster collaboration and information sharing within the healthcare industry. By working together, sharing best practices, and learning from incidents like the Ascension attack, we can collectively strengthen our defenses and better protect the patients who rely on us for their well-being. Organizations like Health ISAC are really, really important in that regard. Because in the face of relentless adversaries, our commitment to availability, resilience, and swift incident response will be the key to make sure we safeguard these mission-critical services and provide and maintaining the trust of those that we serve.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps us up for another Identity Security Spotlight. Mike, thank you for joining us. Everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Cal.